What if the reason he left was not because he stopped loving you, but because he loved you too deeply to stay? We speak of love as presence, a touch, a voice, a heartbeat next to ours. But few ever talk about its silence, the kind that arrives when the person who once looked at you with light suddenly turns away into shadow. This isn't a story about loss. It's about what remains after love disappears. And that's where our story begins. Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." But transformation, in love, doesn't always happen together. Sometimes one soul awakens faster than the other, and the awakening hurts. When a man truly falls in love, not with the surface but with the soul, something ancient stirs inside him. He is confronted not only with who you are, but with who he truly is. And for many men, that's the beginning of disappearance. At first, he feels alive. You awaken his warmth, his laughter, his need to protect, to give, to belong. But soon after, he begins to feel something deeper, a pull from within, an unease that whispers, "I am not enough for this love." This is not arrogance. It's the trembling of the shadow, the buried self that Jung spoke of, the part that says, "If she truly sees me, she will see all of me." And so he hides. He withdraws. Not from you, but from the mirror you have become. Love, for a man who has not yet met his own depths, feels like exposure. To love deeply is to be seen without armor, and most men were never taught how to stand unguarded in that kind of light. When he disappears, it often looks like rejection. But beneath that silence is a man fighting with himself. He is not running away from you. He is running away from what you awaken. Jung called this the confrontation with the anima, the feminine soul within a man. When he meets a woman who embodies that inner image, his ideal, his reflection, his emotional twin, it doesn't bring peace, it brings chaos. Because suddenly love isn't just about affection, it's about awakening everything he has repressed, his vulnerability, his longing, his fear, his need to surrender. And surrender feels like death to the ego. So he retreats, into silence, into work, into solitude, believing distance will save him. But all he's really doing is trying to escape the mirror. Stillness. That's what follows when love hits the unconscious. Jung would say he has entered the realm of the shadow, a place where all unhealed parts live. Love has become the alchemy that exposes his wound. He remembers the times he was told not to cry, not to need, not to feel. He remembers the faces that left before he could ask them to stay. And now, your love touches the same scar. So he leaves, not because he wants to, but because staying means facing every ghost he buried. But here's the hidden truth. His disappearance is not the end of love. It is the beginning of his descent. Jungian psychology calls this the night sea journey, a descent into the unconscious, where the man must confront his fears, his past, his illusions of strength. Love was merely the spark that lit the path. Now, in the darkness, he must learn who he is without the mask. He doesn't write, he doesn't call, he disappears. But beneath the silence, a quiet transformation is happening. The boy is dying, and the man is being born. And this is where many women misunderstand his absence. They see distance as disinterest. But Jung would see it as initiation. For some men, to love is to awaken, and awakening demands solitude. Have you ever felt that kind of silence? The one that hurts, not because it's empty, but because it's full. Full of the words never said, the touch never returned, the closure that never came. Silence, in Jung's world, is not absence. It is incubation. The psyche withdraws not to forget, but to rebuild. A man in love who disappears is often a man who cannot yet hold the love he feels. His soul recognizes the immensity of it and trembles. There's another truth Jung would whisper here. Every person we love is both a gift and a test. They awaken what we long for and what we fear most. They bring us closer to the divine within, and also to the darkness we hide from. To love someone deeply is to meet your unconscious through them, and sometimes the soul steps back, not to leave, but to breathe. So when a man disappears after love, he's not rejecting you. He's wrestling with his own awakening. He's trying to find himself within the love that changed him. But the next truth changes everything. When he disappears, it feels like betrayal. But in truth, it's the psyche's way of seeking balance. Jung believed that love, when real, doesn't only join two people, it also summons everything inside them that stands against love. Every fear, every insecurity, every wound rises to the surface. And when that happens, most men don't know what to do with it. So they vanish into the only place they can still breathe: solitude. At first, solitude feels like safety, but soon it becomes a mirror he can't escape. There, in the quiet, he begins to see the faces of his inner world: the boy who was never enough, the man who tried too hard to be strong, the lover who feared he'd destroy what he adored. Jung called this the process of individuation, a sacred unraveling where the false self dies so that the true one may emerge. It's a lonely journey, but not a meaningless one. Somewhere in that solitude, he begins to understand. Love is not possession, it's revelation. It reveals his capacity for tenderness, but also his incapacity to hold it without trembling. He realizes love doesn't demand that he stay. It demands that he become. And becoming is painful work. For the first time, he faces the truth he spent his life avoiding: that love is not about finding completion in another, but confronting the incompleteness within himself. And that confrontation is where transformation begins. Every man who has truly loved and left carries a silent burden. He knows he's broken something sacred, not because of betrayal, but because of fear. And yet, fear is the soil where growth takes root. In Jungian terms, this is the movement from shadow to light. The man learns that running away from love is running away from his own soul. He begins to see that the woman he left behind wasn't just a person. She was a mirror of his lost self. He remembers the warmth of her eyes, the calm in her voice, the way her presence made him feel both fragile and alive. He begins to understand that he didn't disappear from her. He disappeared from himself. This is the silent healing, the invisible turning of the soul. No messages, no explanations, just the slow reassembling of a man learning to love without fear. He starts to realize something subtle, that love isn't supposed to save him. It's supposed to awaken him. And in that awakening, he discovers the essence of the anima, the inner feminine, not as fantasy, but as balance. She is no longer just you. She becomes the part of him that can finally feel. Through her memory, he learns compassion. Through her silence, he learns humility. Through her loss, he learns presence. Love now is no longer a desire to possess. It becomes a prayer, quiet, wordless, eternal. Jung wrote that no man can truly love a woman until he has met the woman within himself. Perhaps that is why he left, because he hadn't yet met her. His disappearance, then, was not an ending, but a return to the beginning, the start of a journey inward, toward wholeness. And maybe that's the secret no one tells you. Sometimes, love needs distance to purify itself. Sometimes the space between two souls is where both finally learn to breathe. One day, he may return, not as the same man who left, but as the one who has faced his darkness and made peace with it. Or perhaps he never comes back, because the purpose of your meeting was never forever. It was awakening. You awakened him to himself, and he awakened you to the truth that love can exist even in absence. That is the paradox of the Jungian heart. Love is not lost when it disappears. It only changes form. So when you think of him, don't think of the leaving. Think of the silence he left behind and how that silence taught you to listen to your own heart again. Because in the end, love's disappearance was never punishment. It was initiation. He entered his solitude to meet himself. You entered yours to remember your worth. And somewhere in that quiet distance, you both became who you were meant to be. He left because he loved you, and now you see, love never truly leaves, it only changes shape. Maybe love was never meant to be understood, only remembered. If this spoke to your soul, share it. Someone out there may need to hear this tonight. But what if the heart's greatest illusion isn't love, but control?